So this will be our final look at physical modeling, and this is probably going to be the most experimental application of it. Now, if we look here in this instrument, we'll see that there are some normal type sounds that it can generate, things like keys and pads and even some like textures that may be, normally pitched. But at the same time, this is the sort of instrument that's designed for experimentation. And so we're just going to walk through it a little bit here. The sound source, what's actually generating the sound here, comes from samples. So this is the reason why we're kind of going through this progression. We're now going to be reusing samples in a different way. In this case, though, we're going to just use this as more of like a basic sampler. We have a sine wave loaded in. And we can hear that like so. And on this instrument, things are flipped on their head a little bit. Normally, what you'd expect to see is the sound generation stuff at the top and the modulation stuff at the bottom. Here, it's the inverse. So this is where our sound begins, and the signal flow is then left to right. So we begin at the granulator, go through the gate, then we hit the resonator. And so now, the light bulb should be going off in your head that this is physical modeling. And we can choose different resonating bodies that we want to send whatever sample we have through. So it could be a metal string, it could be a nylon string, it could be whatever you want it to be. And then from there, we can go into the body. And of course, we can choose none on these things, but that's not what we're going to do here. And with physical modeling, it's all about experimentation and kind of setting to taste. So you could have maybe some semblance, an idea of what would happen when a sine wave is resonated off of a nylon string, but until you go through and mess around with this, there's really no way of knowing. So let's just set something up here quickly. This instrument lends itself to experimentation. It's hard for me not to get lost in this one and just start like making sounds, so hopefully you'll be able to bear with me. All right, I want to get rid of that clicking, so I'm just going to actually send this in here. So now we can actually use an envelope to control the level. All right, cool. So we're good to go there. So now we're sending this in. All is well. All right, so the next thing we can do then from this sine wave is we could send it into something like a nylon string. And so to do that, we just have to start increasing the wet value. And then we have some controls that we can adjust. Sustain is the one that's really going to change things up here. We could try some of the other ones as well. And so I am literally just kind of clicking around at sheer random, trying to get a balance that I like. Let's go into a large chime. And I'm going to turn the unison on. And you can tell that as I play in different octaves, there are times where, based on the algorithm that's been generated, I'm hitting some sort of like resonant frequency, and it's causing just like some really nasty notes. And that's just kind of the fun of this instrument. So I'm liking the balance I have here. We could obviously go in and adjust things or actually set some of these modulators and get them to work. And I might do that at some point because it would make it a little bit more fun. But let's go into the body next and let's choose something. Let's choose a metal plate. And now in this case, it's actually this X and Y plane that makes it so interesting. Like, where is it going to hit this plate? Let's try changing the pitch. And that might be a fun thing to actually modulate using some kind of an LFO. And so we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but like I said, this is the instrument that's all about that. I was actually trying to control the pitch, wasn't I? another thing that's often fun to control are things like that, but it's going to get really loud, so I'm a little bit nervous to do that. All right, let's try throwing it in there. Let me try the other ones now. And so you can hear that this instrument, it's just so experimental. It's a lot of fun to mess with. And this is why I kind of want to save this one for last. And I already just went way off topic from what I wanted to do and just started like messing around and making sounds. But that's how physical modeling can draw you in. What I think I personally like about it is that I don't know what to expect. I am just going to sit through and try the different combinations and mess with some of the controls, throw modulators on there and see what I can get. But let's just go through a couple presets here. Let's see what it can do in terms of realism with like a harp. It's done a pretty good job with that. I'm so tempted to like mess around with these things though and like change the sound just with like one small thing. I'd love to get that kind of moving around. So easy to just go in here and start experimenting for a long amount of time. Here's a pad. Right, so all sorts of different options that you can get out of this thing with the physical modeled components. So this was our far to the left experimental example, and if we really want to go crazy, we could go in and look at some of these textures that they have. Let's try It's That Guy again. And this would be a great example when we get into talking about granulation and grain clouds and wave scan, because that's really what's going on here. So I'll just leave it there for now. Thanks a lot, and we're going to start getting into additive synthesis next.